Get in, nerds. We're playing Victoria 3. We are, it's a new session, so we're just going to be working on getting guaranteed liberties enacted here. And we're going to be working on getting through our construction queue. Just to get this stuff finished out so that we can finish burning our way into our surplus here. As you can see, we're spending quite a bit on construction goods. About 100k net. That's 149k listed there under temporary national expenses, but 69.4k of it's being spent on by the private sector, which means it's coming out of the investment pool rather than out of the National Reserve. That's this stuff here. So yeah, so that's what we're mostly working on this evening. Got our interest in Iberia activated. I don't think I had any big ambitions for right now. So I think now we're just kind of relaxing when we set our thing here. That's right. We could definitely stand to produce some more lead mines. I know that there's... I don't want to queue up too much. Maybe a few, though. That's right, you only got lead in the ground in Svialand. Svialand? Yeah, I'm still a little shaky on the pronunciations, but that's okay. I haven't heard any complaints yet. This thing, we also want to make sure that we stay here, because right now we are, we're just above... Ottoman Empire, are you recognized? You're unrecognized. We're number 7. We could overtake Prussia, but we're not quite there yet. But we're just kind of holding our rank 7. Ah, coffee talk event. You've seen this one before, but I'm going to read it out anyway because I've been reading out most events, except for the really repetitive ones. So, guaranteed liberties was on everyone's lips in every coffee house. Afterwards, Kirsten was ready to cross the rural folk to help pass the law. Wise counsel advises against conflating the voice of people with the voice of God. Wiser counsel calls the voice of the people mad. The wisest counsel understands that genius and madness are two sides of the same coin. It's a matter of knowing when to listen. We're gonna do this one again, I think, just to make sure that our boy Iskirson doesn't die, doesn't get exiled rather, because that would be a real tragedy. Let me see. We're working on home affairs, so following our improvement of our lead industry, we should go ahead and queue up some additional government administrations just to make sure we've got the capacity to handle that stuff. I'm going to put them in... Oh, actually developing quite a good... try not to say quite a good reserve army of capital, but it is what I'm thinking. In both eastern Norway and Scania. And by that, of course, I mean unemployed population over here. So those are good places to go. So good number in Schleswig-Holstein. Let's see. Good few in Svialand. Let's get a couple more here as well. At this point, we're going to get a little bit more out of our ones in these areas, because there's a throughput bonus that's based on the number of levels of the building that you're stacking up all at once. So if I put 2 more in, for example, Eastern Norway, I would get less benefit out of that than putting them in, Western Norway over here. I would get less benefit out of that than if I put them in Eastern Norway, where I've already got 7 levels. Because I'm building up to 8 in both Eastern Norway and Scania, and that's going to get us a total of an 8% throughput bonus for all of the levels there, which means they're going to produce a little bit more than 65 they're going to, per level. They're going to produce like 70 per level. I'm not going exactly, but you get the basic idea. And the reason I'm overbuilding this is because I think it's going to be time in not too long to implement some social security. We do have... Let me see. Our standard of living, so this is mostly going to affect unemployed pops. we only have about 1 million pops that have standard of living below the minimum. And that's going to be, and that's going to create radicalization over time. Although, to be honest, our number of loyalists is actually really high, and we have very few radicals. Although the radicals that we're getting are from having them below the minimum standard of living. On the other hand, I don't necessarily want to do too much of that right away, because we might put ourselves into a situation where we're paying out a bunch of welfare, and that's not necessarily great from a balance sheet perspective. Come on. There we go. You're going to see me play around with this music player every time, because it generally takes me part of God Save the Queen, sorry, not God Save the Queen, that's not what the song is called, of Glory to the Queen to get started. Just because I need to start, before I start recording, I want to refresh refresh my memory. And we've got a lot of events, so I'm going to go ahead and give us a pause here. Now, I'm going to drop us to speed 1 here. So, first we've unlocked the monitor. This is just a better form of convoy escort naval base. We're going to go ahead and do that probably pretty soon. Or no, this is a better form of main ship, of battleship. Interesting. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and put that in. So that'll increase costs not too significantly, actually. It's going to require us to buy a lot more ironclads and ammunition, as you can see, but it'll also increase our the capacity of our navies. So we'll go ahead and do that. Next, we've got discord within the landowners. An influential faction within the landowners has grown frustrated with their co-members' neutrality on the topic of guaranteed liberties. Themselves in favor of the law, they have now resolved to form a separate political faction intent on passing it. This is an event we got from doing the monitors. I forgot that was going to immediately pop up. With their support, the bill shall pass. This gives us a reduction in the power of the landowners and increased enactment chance. And the intelligentsia extend an open hand to these mavericks. That gives us a much smaller increase in the enactment success chance, but a much larger decrease in the power of the landowners, which means I'm going to go for that one. So, false democracy. Kirsten Eskirsen has issued a condemnation of the Scandinavian electoral system, endorsing abstention from voting in what he calls a sham put on to placate the people. In the dictatorship of the reactionary, of the rich and powerful, obscured from the view of the people by a facade of democracy, the best thing one may do is demonstrate the futility of such a guise, so that the people may be spurred into action regardless of concession. Okay, so, the government must know that we see through their system. Scandinavia gets peaceful anti-electoralism for 5 years, minus 10 legitimacy, plus 2% of the rural folk members of POPs in Scandinavia become radical, minus 20% momentum to the Agrarian Party, plus 10% momentum to the Labour Party. Discrediting the system is the next step towards revolution. Scandinavia gets revolutionary anti-electoralism, minus 5 political strength per vote, minus 5 legitimacy, 10% of rural folk members of POPs become more radical, minus 20% momentum will be added to the Agrarian Party, plus 10% momentum to the Høyre. Don't love that. Their supporters aren't voting. Ours certainly are. Reduced momentum to the Agrarian Party, plus momentum to the Labour Party. Well, I don't want a bunch of radicals or a penalty to legitimacy, so I'm going to go with this one. And we're going to go with electoralism all the way. And let's hope that doesn't become a problem later. So what does that do to the election? Agrarian Party is... Oh, well, let's take a minute for it to... Yeah, okay, here we go. So I think the Agrarian and Labour parties are still going to hold it. The shallow draft solution. Designed for coastal defense operations, what monitors lack in ocean-going capabilities, they make up for in cost-effectiveness. Admiral Wilhelm von Fersen has informed the Admiralty in Stockholm that his fleet will keep any foes away from Scandinavian waters. Sir, while it might look like a cheese box on a raft, I assure you that the 15-inch guns she carries in that box of hers are no laughing matter. I didn't deliver that right. Let me try again. Sir, while it might look like a cheese box on a raft, I assure you that the 15-inch guns she carries in that box of hers are no laughing matter. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to do that, run that by one more time. Option 1, secure shores means secure commerce. Scandinavia gains safer shores, which adds 10% trade center throughput. That's not bad. Let us orient our naval doctrine around them. Some extra defense. We don't win by having the best ships, we win by having the most ships. Reduced offense and defense, extra shipyards throughput. I'm going to go with this middle one for extra defense. Let's get back to moving at full speed here. Doing pretty well. Okay, there we go. So, as usual, the Agrarian Party takes it. Labour Party coming in second after the Radical People's Party. And someone formed the Venstre again. Still, we have really excellent legitimacy here. Nothing we can do that really exceeds that, so that I'm interested in, at least at the moment. Oh, interesting. So the armed forces flipped over to the Venstre, and the Radical People's Party's gone. Venstre turned into the Radical People's Party turned into... I thought... Yeah, yes. Okay, the Radical People's Party turned into the Venstre. I get it. I get it now. So that's really interesting. Quite curious, but I'm pleased with it. Very pleased, in fact. Is this expansion in government administration going to bork the cost of paper? Let's find paper here on the left. No, surely not. These only cost 20 paper per level, so I'm only increasing the demand of paper by 100. So that should be just fine. Shouldn't have a problem whatsoever. It's going to raise the cost of paper a little, but only a little. It's also going to raise the cost of sulfur, but sulfur is doing pretty okay from a price standpoint, I think. Let me see. We still are getting most of our coal from trade. And that's really not ideal, but it is what it is, I guess. Guaranteed liberties. Brilliant. So having guaranteed liberties here is going to provide us with a huge benefit. Number one, it's going to reduce progress of revolutionary and secession movements. So if a movement's trying to start a rebellion against the government, it's going to move slower, and that means it's going to get fewer events, fewer ticks. It's just ultimately going to be better. Next, it gives us this rad bonus, which is what I refer to, the bonus that's extra loyalists from standard of living increases, reduced radicals from standard of living decreases. Basically, it gives us much more of a buffer in terms of the effects of increases and decreases on standard of living on our total radical and loyalist count. So with that having been done, we're going to get the big one done, and we're going to move from National Supremacy to Cultural Exclusion. And some people are going to be mad, but they're just going to have to live with it. I'm also going to start queuing in an increase to overall home affairs. Again, we've added a level of institution, so that's reduced our available bureaucratic capacity up here by 92. And then we're going to, since it's 92 per level, we're going to be able to go up to level 3. That's going to cost 182. We don't really have that much, but we're building a bunch more government offices right now. So that's going to be a process. Does anyone meaningfully oppose the move to cultural exclusion? Yeah, it's really just the Church of Sweden and the Petite Bourgeoisie. So that's really good. I'm really pleased with that. It is going to reduce our authority by 100. So we are going to have to dispense with one of these consumption taxes, unless we can probably go ahead and halt our suppression of the landowners. In fact, I think we're going to do that. It doesn't have that much effect, honestly, anyway. So let's see. Yep, and then all we're spending that on is consumption taxes. Let's throw in one more just to help out with our overall bottom line. We'll tax wine. So that'll be nice. Great Britain is going after Oman in a diplomatic play over here. required to get involved, so I'm gonna not. Again, very relaxed run. Whatever's going on in Oman is going to be is for Oman to deal with. Let's look at our declared interests, because I want to be doing a little bit more trade around here. I think it's time for us to declare interests in Asia. In particular, I think getting access to the Chinese market is going to be really of a benefit to us. South Asia and Southeast Asia are also going to have their benefits in terms of trade. Well, look at this. The British Raj has taken over a bunch of Eastern Burma. This is the Shan states. That's unusual. I think it's unusual. It's unusual to me from an impression standpoint. Oh, law progression immediately. Wonderful. Doesn't someone prefer cultural exclusion? It's the Venstre. It's Venstre who does. I could pull them temporarily into the government. No, I don't need to, though. I would need to kind of push them out afterward again, so I don't want to necessarily do that. Keep things nice and chill. Alright, we've got some extra bureaucratic capacity, so I'm just going to queue in our increase in home affairs to level 4. And that is pretty much everything we need in terms of construction for the moment. So I'm going to put this on hold. It shouldn't take us long to build up a reserve. I think I'm going to take a break of about 1 year from a construction standpoint, and then next time we'll get started with more construction. Let me see. Let's see what kind of colonization. China's still on mercantilism, which is pretty okay. Let's see if we can't get some dye from... Can I not get dye from... Oh, they're in the Russian market. Well, I just feel silly now. We're already getting a bunch of it from the Russian market. Yep, that's me. A big dye's hero. Alright. Coal is the other thing we need to make sure we're importing the sufficiency of. Still a little weak. You know, we're a little short on convoys. Are we really using that many of our convoys to import stuff? We got gantry cranes active. Do I not have the modern... Oh, it's not that I don't have the right production method. I just don't have a very large number of ports. So we'll go ahead and put some ports together. Let's see. Is there anywhere we're a little short on infrastructure? Northern Norway. That's a good place. Northern Norway. Good in Norland. Jotunland could definitely use some. Schleswig-Holstein, we'll put one there. Zealand, put one there. Yeah, we'll put one in Norland. Alright. Winds of change. I just said we were going to put a moratorium on construction. Turns out we're not. Zealand has gone a long way since our attention was first brought to it, going from small houses and scattered farmland to being on its way to becoming a booming metropolis. The woman sighs. Her old hands stop crocheting for a second. When I was younger, all of this was farmland. Us kids would just play freely in the fields, not having to worry about getting hit by a cart or those criminals coming to get us, and we still had time to work. Well, Grandma, now people will have even more places to work at. So we get finally, Svianen shines like... Settle down, Tech Tree. Shines like never before. This gives us 25% more loyalists from standard of living increases for 2 years. Or this is not the end. A bunch of urban center throughput. I'm going to go with the first one. I like getting lots of loyalists. Next to human rights getting unlocked. That unlocks some new laws, and that's really good for us. And then we get an ultimatum. The landowners have issued a stern ultimatum to Jacob von Holstein about towing the party's line on the cultural exclusion law. Jacob von Holstein is determined to resist. The matter wedged the caucus, and it was by their own making. Meanwhile, the issue at hand was given way to this fallout. Sheer stubbornness is what fuels it, with pride wagered in this gamble. Nothing will proceed without a timely resolution to this. Never interrupt an opponent when they make a mistake. We get a 60% chance of something real bad for the trade unions, 15% chance of an enactment chance bonus, and 20% chance of lower strata pops becoming more radical. Or we welcome any dissenter from loyalists. This just makes von Holstein more popular and increases the power of the trade unions. I'm going to go with this one. Making von Holstein more popular is going to increase our success chance. Because that's the way agitators work. Let's see. Giving you a lot of fun events. So I'm just going to go through briefly and explain what human rights does, because this is kind of a landmark technology for us. So this is human rights. It's in the track down from nationalism and down from egalitarianism. It increases maximum investment in social security institution, which doesn't really affect us that much, but unlocks a couple cool new laws. Number one is compulsory primary school and children's rights. That's going to increase our maximum education investment to a pretty substantial number, and that's really good. Second, it unlocks multiculturalism. Multiculturalism is basically, in the current build of the game, is almost functionally an infinite labor cheat code. It will cause huge numbers of people to immigrate from all sorts of places where their standard of living is low or where they're discriminated against, because it basically means there's no discrimination, no legal discrimination in the country. It unlocks protected speech and free speech, which gives you a text spread bonus, which is really solid. And it unlocks a better law options and workers' protections, and arguably better one in labor. And then it leads to feminism, which is what you need in order to let women have the vote. So, that's going to be a big watershed moment for us. Without a clause, rural folk and industrialists are split over the semantics of a clause regarding cultural exclusion. Alright, so we've seen this event a couple of times. We can favor the rural folk, favor the industrialists, or censure Jacob von Holstein. I'm going to favor the rural folk, because they're in the government, and I like keeping them nice and strong, because again, they're an important component of the government. So moving right along here, still haven't gotten any bonuses to the base amount for this one. We've got one agitator agitating here. Oh, one of our agitators left. So you're agitating for national militia, which I don't love. Kirsten Asgierson, I have to say, 3K individuals every month. So per year, that's about 36,000. I'm not necessarily concerned about that. We've got a pretty solid buffer of loyalists at the moment, so I think we can leave that. But if this becomes cumbersome, I may end up needing to ensure his exit from the country. It looks like the landowners are still at 2.4% strength, so I'm interested in keeping that where it is. Again, we don't have any stall chance, in particular because we don't have anyone who's really opposing cultural exclusion. The reason I waited so long to do cultural exclusion, so normally cultural exclusion and other laws expanding the citizenship are good things to do, and I would normally like to do them. One of the big ones, for example, here is that we got a lot of radicals proportionally in Schleswig-Holstein, because a huge population of Schleswig-Holstein is German. And what cultural exclusion is going to do is it's going to change our citizenship law so that those pops are no longer going to be discriminated against, because they share a heritage trait with with all of our primary cultures, which is European heritage. A campaign of banquets. Jacob von Holstein's attendance at a bourgeois fundraising banquet in Stockholm has led to an uptick in funds promoting cultural exclusion. What is your ideology? As the organizer at the end of the table stood to give a toast to the clear wisdom of the reform, he could not help but think of how closely the sound of his fork on the glass represented a coin falling into a bank or a spent cartridge hitting the ground. So that's interesting. He's a reformer. So he's about rights of women. But he's not a feminist. He only is about property women. He'll help us with compulsory primary school later. And that is something we're going to want. So, nourishment for the body and the budget. This gives us 10% improvements to enactment chance and time. Or we can get 20%, but he'll get a trait called Grifter. I don't want him to get this trait, because I still intend to use him to enact compulsory primary school later, and Grifter is going to reduce his popularity. And again, popularity is basically the thing that affects how well agitators are able to do their job of agitating. So we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we're reducing the effectiveness of our agitators. Let's see. Private construction is doing improved fertilizers. Private construction is doing just fine. So I'm gonna. So basically, this allows a souped-up version of the fertilizer production method for farms, and it allows our chemical plants to output more fertilizers. So the thing we're looking at is grain prices. Grain prices are doing quite good, but I can definitely export some additional grain if we increase the overall amount that they're producing. So this will require an additional 590 fertilizer, and this will produce an additional 650 of it. So we're going to go ahead and do that, but then we're going to go ahead and do this, and then finally we're going to get grain exporting. Let's see. Oh my goodness, look at all these markets who will buy our grain. So that's going to be an output, hopefully, of about 750 grain. And that's going to keep the price of grain nice and high. Where is it? Still rock bottom. Okay. All right. Well, our trade routes are increasing. So we'll have to deal with that. Home affairs is up to 2. Very good. Confusion and delay. Supporters of cultural exclusion among the landowners, headed by Jacob von Holstein, have questioned the government publicly on the amount of time that is required in order for the law to pass. The government is at this time carrying out an atrocity through cold bureaucracy. It favors procedure over lives, paperwork over hunger. How many of our people need to suffer for the sake of the feelings of some government functionaries who've never felt a speck of hunger in their lives? Documents can wait, ladies and gentlemen, but the people's suffering cannot. So, options are the bill will be passed when the process is completed. That gives us a big old authority bonus. That's fun. But it increases the strength and radicalism of the movement. Not necessarily worried about that. Or, documents can wait, the people cannot. This gives us a big old radicalism bonus, which is interesting. But it reduces enactment time by 25% and reduces a problem with bureaucracy. So, we're producing 2.8 for 1,000 bureaucracy, and we're using 2.43 thousand bureaucracy. If we lost 10%, that would be about 250, and that would be basically okay. On the other hand, a big bonus to authority would sure be nice. I mean, I'm definitely going to increase our bureaucracy over time anyway. So this one is tempting, but I'm going to get us some extra authority, and that's going to be important because it'll let us get another consumption tax in here. All right, so let's look at the market again. Price of grain still is extremely low. We're exporting 667 of it. Let's look at other options for exporting grain. There's not a lot. Gosh. Wait, hold on. Yeah, they are basically going up to what they said they were going to go up to. That's really curious. We're still a little short on convoys, though, so I'm going to do another round of building up ports. We're still a little short on infrastructure in Jotunland. Northern Norway, yeah, we could get a little more. And then Scania and Svealand. Not as high on infrastructure as we'd like to be. And happily, with our current amount of infrastructure, we're actually construction capacity, we're still actually holding down a nice surplus, even though we're building a bunch of stuff. I guess my ambition for a period of not building was a little bit premature, but that's okay. These things happen. All right, let me take a look at Iceland. Iceland does have sulfur. Fishing wharves are not very profitable. Oh. Fish are very cheap. Well, progressive voting. Wonderful. We are using canneries. Are fish super cheap in our market? They are. Oh, that's really curious. I missed that happened. Alright, well, let's try and export some fish. We can send it to all of the markets that we were exporting to before. That we were exporting grain to. But this having been said, the price of grain is at rock bottom right now. Well, it's actually not rock bottom. It's actually not bad at all. So are these buildings profitable? They are kind of. Going to apple orchards would certainly not improve things. Livestock ranches are doing a little rough. Not probably just because meat is pretty affordable right now. Oh, because fertilizer is much more affordable since I'm producing more of it. That's why. That's why. Well, we can export more fertilizer. We can always make a pretty penny exporting. And the British market just seems extremely hungry overall. So, trade routes, we are no longer making money exporting steamers to Great Britain. So let's just go ahead and scrap that. This is the way this works is this is the productivity, which is the amount of money being made at the trade centers per level of, it's per unit of the good being exported or imported, and this is the total amount. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this, and that'll be just fine. All these other ones are fairly profitable. See, these are producing revenue for our trade center buildings. There's going to be one level of trade centers in our country for each level of trade route, and that's going to be employing just a lot of people. Currently, our trade law is free trade, which means those trade centers are going to be owned privately. So they're going to be employing a lot of capitalists and clerks. So, the art of doing nothing. Though previously opposing the cultural exclusion laws, Kirsten Isgerson has considered the rural folks' political position and instead offers support. While speaking with constituents on matters of law, one must first master the art of appearing to do nothing. Why do you do everything behind whispers and masked men? Indubitably. Oh, sorry. While you do everything behind whispers and masked men. Indubitably. Welcome their support. This makes the rural folk stronger and increases enactment chance. Or keep a sharp eye. They're up to something that makes the rural folk less popular. I'm going to do this first one. It's going to make Kristen Asgerson and his interest group, the Church of Sweden, a little bit more powerful, but I don't think that'll have a giant impact. In any case, it is January of 72. We've been going for just about half an hour, so I think it's time to cut it here. I've had a good time. I hope you've had a good time, and I'll see you all on the other side.